I never envisioned myself getting married, and I never envisioned myself having children. I guess maybe when I looked, no offense to anybody, but when I looked around at the selection of future wives, I was like, yo,
Like, nah.
this is not it. Maybe that's why I never
Maybe.
pondered the idea of marriage. When we met, you were the first Muslim that I ever interacted with, right? So my perception of Islam was 9/11.
And little did we know, like, it would change the direction of everything in our
Yeah,
life. So
yeah.
nothing was
So
the same after that
yeah,
move.
welcome back everyone to another episode of Saleh Family Speaks. It's been a long minute, but here we are. The last time that we did this particular video, if you remember, Sana, was about 4 years ago. We had
5.
5 years ago. We
Yeah.
had less children. We were living in Canada.
Yeah.
Our businesses hadn't bloomed to what they are today, so everything has changed. So this
Yeah.
video is going to be
How we met.
how we met, our
It's
story.
actually, yeah, it's our story, but it encompasses
A lot.
how our journey began.
Yeah.
And we've talked about this many times before, but I think it's good to have a refresher, especially because we have lots of new viewers and listeners. So
So I think we'll just burn through the first part as quick as we can, just because
Yeah.
we've done it, and we do have another video. We might go more into detail about that. But so we are both born in the same geographical location, roughly, which is the interior of British Columbia, Canada. We grew up in the mountains, so we're familiar with winter, and neither of us like snow. So
No.
we don't like cold. So here we are in Malaysia. Yeah, just give a brief kind of your little before we met, and then
Yeah,
I'll do the same, and then
before
we
we
can continue.
met. Yeah, so I was obviously still in high school. I was 17, I think. At the time I was working at Future Shop, which is kind of like
It's Best Buy.
It's
Yeah.
Best
The
Buy
American Best Buy
now.
that swallowed Future Shop.
Future Shop doesn't exist anymore, so people are probably like, "What?"
It's in our
Millennials
hearts.
will know, though.
It's in our hearts and
Millennials
minds.
will know.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think I worked there for like a year or two, maybe. I never noticed you at all.
Nice.
Sorry. And then you got hired on,
Yeah.
and I was having lunch in the lunchroom, and you were sitting there, I think, behind me or something, and the
No,
TV
that's
was
creepy.
on.
That was creepy.
Where were you? I can't remember.
I was there.
You were just
I
there
was
in the
across
room.
from you. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But
I
regardless,
didn't notice
Russell
again.
Peters came on cracking jokes, and that's what broke the ice for us. So shout out to Russell Peters, also
Yeah.
Canadian, also from the GTA,
Yeah.
which is where we would later on move.
Yeah.
But yeah, we grew up very small populations. Where you grew up was
Yeah.
about 10 times the population of where I grew up.
Yeah.
But I moved
Which is
around
still
a
a very
lot.
small town. Like
Yeah,
one
yeah.
mall, one little hospital.
No mall where I'm from.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Very small town.
for sure.
So anyway, watch Russell Peters kind of crack the ice a little bit. You asked me some questions, and I guess the rest is kind of history.
Yeah, well, there was a long, drawn out part
Yeah.
for 5 years. So how it worked out is that when we met, you were the first Muslim that I ever interacted with, right? So my perception of Islam was 9/11 and the Western media propaganda.
Terrorists.
Terrorist, America. So it
All
was intriguing,
Muslims.
right? It was intriguing to me that, I remember you telling me that, no, you're wrong. Because I was saying, oh, Islam is this and this. And you're like, no. So it kind of took me
Yeah.
off guard, right? I don't like to think of myself as an ignorant person or someone who doesn't like to accept information or change their mind. So then that kind of set me on my trajectory of, what would later become me, accepting Islam. But in the beginning, it was very much like totally foreign.
Yeah, it
Everything
was.
about it.
I still remember you vividly saying to me, because you're a pretty stubborn guy, but you
That's
were
all.
like, no, all religion divides people. I still remember you
Yeah.
saying that. You're like, religion is not a nice thing because it divides people. And I was like, what? And in my mind, I was like, that's so weird, because Islam is not like that. It's meant to unite people of all colors, races, like not religions, races, languages, cultures. Anybody and everybody can be a Muslim.
But even religion, you can even throw that in there too, because we believe that the Christians, we believe in the prophets, just like the Christians do and the Jews do. So it is very, very similar.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, definitely that was an interesting moment. So we decided fairly early on that we wanted to get married. Flash forward, sometime I accepted Islam. We did, I say we, me, and, a family friend of yours who proposed on my behalf, to which that was a no-go. So the cultural differences there were pretty hard for me to kind of take,
Yeah.
where it's
I
not
mean, you were
just
a
like,
white guy who just became Muslim, so obviously my family was not going to be
they're,
super
they're a little
receptive to
they're a
that.
little hesitant for
Yeah.
sure. I ended up actually leaving for 4 months to travel to Bangladesh and Pakistan and spend time just kind of learning day to day about Islam, about what it is to be a Muslim, how I have to live my life, how I have to change my ways, if those don't line up with what Islam teaches, and then just practice praying, practice learning about the religion itself, and then when I came back, it
Oh,
was another no.
I should preface this though by saying in that time frame I started college and university. So at that time we kind of like parted ways and we're like, okay, I'm gonna
You do
I'm gonna
this, I'll
do
do
my
this.
school. Yeah, I'm gonna do my school, finish up my degree, and then you do your thing, your degree in Islam, I guess. And then see where it takes us. And I feel like at that time too, like it took me 4 years of university, but at that time I also started wearing hijab. I started praying. I started coming closer to Islam too, because I wouldn't say I was like a fully practicing Muslim. I wasn't praying 5 times a day when I met you.
Well, the community that
So-
you grew up in too was like,
Very cultural.
well, very cultural, but very divided too, because I remember when I was introduced to the community, it was like this half of the community
Yeah.
won't come to the masjid because they think that this half of the community is there, and this half won't come because they think that these people, so nobody ends up coming.
Yeah.
And it turned out it was because of a failed marriage that happened back in Pakistan between these two groups,
families,
these two
yeah.
families, right? And so like when I showed up, I was like, wow, this is weird.
Weird.
It's not what I
And
expected.
at that time, also, there wasn't a lot of other Muslims in the area. It was predominantly Pakistani. Like, I think there was one Arab guy
Yeah.
and one
But
black
even
guy.
they came, like when you grew up, there was nobody.
Yeah, there was like nobody. And you
Because
were the
those
only
those
white guy.
people, yeah, I mean, you have
No, there was one other white guy.
the families from Kosovo.
Yeah.
But they were very distant from
very.
the masjid until quite later on. But
Yeah.
it's a weird kind of thing to think that, out of that, alhamdulillah, we just went back. When did we go back? Last year? We went back home?
2023.
2023? 2024?
Yeah, it's been.
But to see the community having blossomed so much.
Yeah,
that,
now
the
there's
masjid is established.
so
There's
many
such a
Muslims.
diversity of people, and the masjid it's full all the time.
Yeah, alhamdulillah.
That's
It's changed
amazing.
a lot. It's changed a lot. You literally were there when the masjid was being built. You helped build it with your hands.
Yeah. I remember when I came back. So for those that don't know, when I came back, I was essentially the de facto imam. Like I was forced by the elders of the community to lead the salah, lead the prayers, because of where my level of understanding of how to pray of
Your recitation is very nice.
yeah, some would argue that
Your
I'd be one of them.
recitation.
But so I remember leading prayers on the bare concrete floors on top of cardboard, like before the masjid.
Before
had
the
even
masjid was
finished.
even a masjid, yeah.
And then continue on, for 4 years probably.
Yeah.
Leading the prayers, and obviously that was a pretty good indication that I had fully embraced the religion,
Islam.
and it wasn't just a fad or a trend.
Yeah.
So then reverse a little bit, I guess. Coming back from Pakistan, again went with another brother who was a closer family friend, and it was no.
Yeah.
And then alhamdulillah, there was a change of heart during the month of Ramadan. And to both of our surprise, your mom was just like, yeah, I would love it if you married my daughter.
She called you straight up. She
wrote me the letter.
She wrote you a letter. Yeah.
Yeah, that I still have.
Wow.
Yeah.
She wrote you a letter and was like, I'd be honored if you were my son.
Yeah.
It's so cool.
So
it's mind blowing actually, because you think about it and it's like, because that Ramadan, after you had come back from Pakistan and Bangladesh after doing all that stuff, that's when we were like, okay, let's try this again. And it didn't work out. And then we prayed.
Like up, no?
We just genuinely just started praying. We're like, okay, well, this isn't going to work. Then
where do we go from here?
Where do we go from here?
Yeah.
And just kind of left it in Allah's hands. And
it was during the last 10 nights of Ramadan. I was doing i'tikaf in the masjid. And then
what was the turning point for her though? Like
it was, well, in the letter it mentions that, that she was writing and saying like, I've sat in your bayan, like your speeches, I've listened to you talk. I've prayed in your jamaat. I've listened to you call the adhan, and it was just her coming to the masjid and seeing, you know, the effort that I had put in kind of
Yeah.
come
Over the
to
years.
reality, and that was it for her, and alhamdulillah, that was end of Ramadan, and we were married on the day of Arafah, just like 2 months later.
Which is crazy. So the masjid that you were standing on, the cardboard boxes, would then be the same masjid where we had our nikah. And it was the first nikah in that
But
entire
it wasn't
masjid.
standing on cardboard boxes.
Yeah, it was actually built at that time.
Yeah.
But it was the first time a nikah
The
had
first
ever been
nikah.
done.
Yeah.
So subhanAllah, since then I'm sure there's been plenty of more
Yeah.
that have come after us. But
Alhamdulillah. So then, you know, we got married, and our honeymoon was to Malaysia.
Malaysia.
I had met a brother, who is the now current president of the Cricket Association of Malaysia, who was such a dear friend of mine. I love him to pieces.
And you met him in?
And I met him in Bangladesh.
Yeah.
And we were just like two mischievous children. He's 20 years older than me.
He's so fun.
He's more than 20 years older than me.
We should bring him on
But
as a guest.
he's such a amazing gem of a
Yeah,
person.
he is.
And when I was in Bangladesh, the whole Jamaat was either Pakistanis or Bengalis. And there was this one Malay guy and one Canadian guy.
Yeah.
And we both
So that's why
spoke
you
great
hit it
English.
off. Yeah.
And we were just like, dude, we're
Best of
stuck
friends.
together. Two peas in a pod. We would leave and we would just go and we were trying to find like junk food. And I remember we came to this one, like, it was like a 7-Eleven. And it was just like a moment. And we just loaded our bags and tang. That's always like the running joke between us is the tang from Bangladesh. So yeah, that we went to Malaysia, and you were hesitant at first.
Yeah. Well, normally people, when they go for their honeymoons, they choose the south. So they go to the Bahamas or Mexico
Yeah, like
or whatever.
Canadians is
And I
referring to.
remember distinctly, I was looking at the sandals resorts and I was like, it's going to be too many like bikinis and alcohol. And it just didn't seem right. And so I remember you having this conversation with him. And he's like, why don't you come here to Malaysia? I was like,
it wasn't
what's
like
Malaysia?
It wasn't like a question. It was like
it was like yeah, you should just come here.
You should like duh.
And I remember like looking it up. I was like, where is, like, you've always heard of Indonesia being like the biggest Muslim population, blah, blah. And I was like, what is Malaysia?
Yeah.
So I remember looking it up and being like, oh, it's got like a city. Oh, it's got beaches. Ooh. And
It has everything.
we literally just booked tickets.
Yeah.
And they helped us. Like when we got here, they
Amazing.
booked a resort in the rainforest for us. They booked this.
They had the
they
rose
booked flights.
petals and the heart put on the
Yeah,
on the
they
bed
were
for us.
so amazing. And
Yeah.
so we were here for like a little over 2 weeks, I
Yeah,
think.
like almost 3 weeks, almost.
Fell in love with it the moment we got here.
Yeah.
And we didn't even have kids at that time,
We didn't even
obviously.
have
Like we
kids.
had just gotten married.
Hmm.
Went back home, and then maybe 2 months later, I got pregnant with Amina.
It's because of the lake of the pregnant maiden.
That mythical lake
Yeah.
in the middle
So
of
guys,
the ocean.
in case you don't know, there's a lake in Malaysia near Langkawi, and it's in the shape of a pregnant woman laying down. And the myth or whatever is that if you dip your feet in the water, you'll become pregnant.
You'll become fertile.
Yeah,
Or something.
fertile. So
Well, it worked for me. So
interestingly enough, the only 2 times that we've gone, I've had to fight monkeys.
that's true. That's another story,
whole other
though.
story.
The whole other story.
But yeah, so we came back. We fell in love with the country.
We
and the
loved it.
people.
And at that time, we kind of made the conscious decision, though.
For
We're
sure.
like, I
We
would
wanna
love
move
to
here
live
one day.
here someday. Like, it was just like this light bulb moment where we're
Yeah.
like, this place is perfect. Like, it literally has everything. And obviously, we had no idea how that would even happen.
Yeah.
At that point, we were still living in
It's-
my parents' basement.
Yeah,
like,
it's one of those things where when your intention is there,
Mm-hmm.
Allah will make it happen. If you work towards it and that's your intention and you want it that bad, Allah will make it happen for you.
yeah.
Right, with your effort. And I went back to school, and I remember actually, if you recall, we were in, I think, Langkawi, and I got the email that I was accepted into the
School.
aircraft maintenance engineering
Yeah.
program.
Yeah.
So
So
it was
you
like-
did schooling after
Yeah.
getting married
After
and
I
all
got
that
married.
stuff. At that
Go
point,
figure.
I was working. I was working for the government.
Yeah.
Was I working for the
Child
government?
protection,
Yeah, I
social
was.
worker.
Yeah, I was at that time. Yeah.
So
So,
you actually
I landed my dream job, which was
yeah,
pretty
it
epic.
was short lived because you got
It was
pregnant.
short lived. I got
Yeah.
pregnant, and then towards the end, I took like the last, I think, 2 months
No,
before I
I think
even
it was
gave
like
birth.
1 month. You were
Was
were-
I?
yeah,
Was I large?
You were large.
Oh, okay. So I worked
Yeah.
almost till the end.
Yeah, because if you recall, you used to drive me to school, drop me off,
True.
and then you would pick me up on the way back, which is crazy. That feels like a lifetime.
Feels like a
ago.
lifetime ago. How many? It's been. This
9
is our
years,
11th.
10 years almost.
No, this is our 11th year.
12.
In October, it'll be
12.
12th?
Yeah.
Holy, time
Remember?
flies.
Okay, so our 10-year anniversary happened. So we got married on the 13th.
That's right.
No, the 14th. October 7th happened. And so
And it was our
we had
anniversary
this
a
big
week
plan of
after
our
that.
10-year anniversary.
That's right.
And then we were just like, dude, we can't do
No,
this,
I
right? And
remember
then
that.
a year later, we both forgot our anniversary because we were in the midst of packing and moving to Malaysia to come later on.
Literally.
So this is year 12.
Wow.
Alhamdulillah.
SubhanAllah, time really
Crazy.
flies, honestly.
Yeah.
And we always like say our anniversary. I mean, obviously, like with the Western calendar, we go by October 14th, right?
14th, if
But-
you can recall what
Yeah.
day it is.
But it was the day of Arafah that we got married. So we literally celebrated Eid together as a married couple,
Yeah.
which was pretty cool.
Yeah.
And all of our kids were born in and around Ramadan. Like Amina was born a day before Eid.
hmm
Zainab was born. Was she a Ramadan baby? No, I don't think so. Was she?
She was right after.
Right
yeah.
after Ramadan.
They were all like you were pregnant through
Yeah.
Ramadan.
Yusuf was beginning of
Dude, it
Ramadan.
was just before.
Yeah,
Just before.
it's crazy.
Yeah, it all ties in there. There's always been like some like significant date that lines
Yeah,
up with
lines
like
up.
Islam and us. It's pretty special. So
Mhm.
you had Amina, and then I was halfway through my program,
Mhm.
and so I got to take the summer break off, which was amazing. I got to
Yeah.
spend the
A lot of
first
time with
first
Amina,
month or whatever
with your first
my
kid.
firstborn baby, who's now almost 10 years old. Right?
Where does the time go?
Reads more books than I've ever seen anybody read, novels. Like she's just an
SubhanAllah.
incredible. I don't even know what to say.
I know.
My mind is blown every time I see my kids and I look at them and like how they've
I
grown
know.
and progressed
And we
then-
knew from the very beginning that we wanted to be parents.
Yeah.
Like, that was like
No.
That was like-
no. Back
what?
it up.
What?
In my life, I never envisioned myself getting married, and I never envisioned myself having children. So you changed all of that.
Prior to meeting me.
Exactly.
So it was meeting me when you realized like
Yeah.
life is something different.
Yeah.
Like-
Well, people, right? Because my perception of
A family.
family, I mean, alhamdulillah, like my parents were a great married couple for, as long as my dad was alive and even past
Mm-hmm.
that point. So I had a really solid foundation of what a marriage should look
Mm-hmm.
like. My parents never fought. They never, they never had any
Mm-hmm.
issues that way.
Mhm.
So I always saw that,
Mhm.
but I guess maybe when I looked, no offense to anybody, but when I looked around at the selection of future wives, I was like, yo,
Like, nah.
this is not it. Maybe that's why I never
Maybe.
pondered the idea of marriage. But yeah, then I met you, and then it was like, wait a second. So you're telling me that, your faith and your culture, because your culture is very heavily influenced by your faith,
Yeah.
teaches that, that you should be modest, you should be, preserving yourself for your husband or your wife. There's so many things that really was like, wow, this is definitely something that I could get behind in terms of like getting married and having a family. And then, when we got married, we were like, for sure, like we want a
Yeah.
family. And then, I finished my schooling, got a job immediately. I graduated on the dean's list, top of my class.
Which is wild. Because you never thought about doing post-secondary
I hate
before that.
school.
Yeah, you're
I
not a
hated
school person.
I've done so
But-
many different jobs, never been fired. I always just kind of like, I want to try this. I want to try this.
You
I
tried
wanna
so
do
many
this.
things. And you were good at it. And I still remember my mom handing me the newspaper. And it was
Yeah,
like
yeah.
a little newspaper clipping. And it was like,
Back when we had newspapers.
aircraft engineers wanted.
Yeah, no, it was like
It was like an info
Yeah,
session.
yeah.
And you're like, no, I don't want to go there. I still remember we went to this info session, walking through this like hangar of like airplanes and
Yeah.
stuff. And the guy was like, you can get hired in Dubai for $100 a day.
No,
You're like, sold.
$1,000.
$1,000.
So that guy, Murray Palmer, would later become my teacher.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was the thing that got me. Is like, yeah, you can contract $1,000 a day in Dubai, no problem. I was like, where do we sign this? Like, where do I sign up for
It was
this?
like a challenge for you though, because again, you had not gone to school for so long.
I've been out of school for almost a
Yeah,
decade.
but you also wanted to be the best, and you were,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
is
I can't-
wild. You graduated as the top student,
Yeah,
which is like crazy for somebody that hasn't
and
gone
that's
to
like
school.
100 exams and practical exams, so both
Yeah.
paper and physical making
Physical.
stuff. I mean, I had an advantage because I was older than these kids coming out of high school and stuff, and like I can destroy
Had some
you when it
experience.
comes to hand-eye, like making stuff. And
And you're very
I'm
competitive.
so I don't like to lose.
Yeah.
Like even if it's my kids, I'm like those 3 kids, they're the only ones in life that get a pass.
Yeah.
Because even you, I'm not
Yeah,
losing to you.
I know you're not losing to me. It sucks.
Ever.
The odd time if you feel bad for me, you might let me win.
Yeah, I might
But
pretend
for the
to
most
fall
part,
or
yeah, for the
something.
most
But no,
part,
when it comes
you're
to
very
outside of
competitive.
my family, there's no chance.
Yeah.
No chance. And because for me, it's just simply that if I'm gonna compete against someone, I can't handle being second.
Yeah.
Like if you're like Ricky Bobby, you probably know Talladega Nights. Like if you ain't first, you're last, and that's it. So yeah, I'm a little bit competitive. So graduated, got the job, hired first draft picked out of the class, to the
Wow.
best hangar, to the best crew. An amazing experience that I
But
had.
how long did you even work there for?
3 years.
Was it actually 3
Yeah.
years?
So how
So we
that
had
went.
Zainab while you were working?
Exactly. So little Z came along. I
As a
think
surprise.
yeah, she's a surprise. She's the best
She's
surprise
our
I've ever
surprise
had.
baby, yeah.
And yeah, like so I worked there for 3 years, and during that time we had our second, still living in the basement, uncertain about what we were gonna do, and then again for me it was always there's always a goal in line, and that goal was that once I finished school, first top of the class, get the job,
Yeah.
do the 3 years, get my license, and then go contracting. And that's kind of
That was like the goal.
and it's exactly how it worked out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
SubhanAllah.
So I got my license, the first one out of the class to get licensed. And then we decided, yeah, let's make a
let's
jump.
apply for jobs. And
You know, Z came right in the middle, so like she doesn't remember so much of the old house.
Yeah.
But and another just like, man, for a father who has girls, you'll know what I'm talking about. But like you don't know what love is until you see those children looking at you.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, like
Yeah.
you love, you know, your husband, your wife, but that's a totally
It's a
different.
totally different love.
Yeah,
It's like a love where you would take a bullet
100%.
without even thinking about
I mean,
it.
I'd take a bullet for you too. But
Obviously.
if I have to choose between you and them, I'm sorry, babe.
It's all good. I would do the same, hun. So yeah, Zainab was the exact same age that Yusuf was when we moved here to Malaysia, which is
When
like
we moved to Toronto.
yeah, when we moved to Toronto. So we didn't know anybody there,
Yeah.
like at all. You got the job, and we pretty much decided it was time to start a new chapter.
Yeah.
And little did we know, like it would change the direction of everything in our life. So
Yeah.
nothing
So,
was the same after that
Yeah,
move.
we went contracting. I joined the mobile repair team for Bombardier, traveled to Texas and Montreal and do these jobs. And then COVID happened 1 year after we decided to move our entire family and everything that we own
Yeah.
across the country. And that's where we'll stop this podcast.
You're gonna have to stay tuned for part 2, because part 2 is wild.
Yeah, it's been interesting.
Absolutely wild.
Yeah, thank you guys for being here. It's good to be back. We've got a lot more of these episodes coming, guys, so do stay tuned. And we'll see you very shortly with the rest of the story.
Bye, guys.